Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My name is Robert from Islam for Europeans. Welcome to another episode from our channel. And today we have, our most honored guest. We have Sister Michelle Renee Davis, who's coming from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And she has the honor of being the first sister we've had on Islam for Europeans in a full interview. So thank you very much for coming on, Sister Michelle. Assalamu alaikum. How are you doing?
Wa alaikum salam. Alhamdulillah, I'm really doing good. I'm doing good. I can't complain.
Alhamdulillah, that's great. Excellent. So I guess we could just, dive right into it. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, Michelle, and how you came to Islam.
So I find that my story is very simple and also kind of strange and weird at the same time. I was 16 years old and I was going to one of my friend's house, which was actually a group home for adolescents. And I used to actually live there before way back then, but I went to go visit her and I'm actually putting weave in my hair. I was doing my hair, putting weave in and everything. She's like, can you walk me to Erie Avenue? Anybody from Philly know exactly what I'm talking about.
Mm.
And I was like, sure, I want to go and take my shot. I said, okay, sure, I'll walk you up. That's not a problem. So we walk up there. We're in the store. She tells me, I want to take my shot. So they're talking and she does it. And I'm like, oh, that's good. That's great. And then he turns and looks at me and was like, how about you? And I'm like, I'm just here for the food, like not really, but like that's the same. Like I'm just here. Like so he starts off like, well, I was stick to bond. I said, but I don't know enough about Islam. And he was like, now mind you, I'm like, I'm studying, but I don't know enough, which actually AKA means I wasn't studying at all. Like I just see what everybody else is doing. And to me, that was studying at 16. Okay. So he was like, well, what if you get hit by a car? All of a sudden I was like, okay, I'll do it. So I did it. So I walked in there with a fishnet shirt on and weave and walked out in full hijab. I mean, fully like niqab and all. It was
Oh, wow.
yes,
Immediate transformation.
Yes, he gave us everything. And it was like, go to Asuna Nabawiya and they had Mushahada classes on Sundays. And I started going there and learning how to pray and stuff like that from there.
Wow, subhanallah, that's amazing. What a quick transition. What happened? A lot of masters they want to hear our conversion story, but they don't really say, okay, what happens next? So, what happened next? What was the transition like in the first year?
So the first couple of years, I found that I felt very accepted and things like that into the community, but I find that it was very isolated at the same time. Like I was a part of a community that was isolated in a sense, like if you wasn't Muslim, you didn't matter. Like it was like one of those kinds of things. It was not ever said, but that's how it was. And it was very cliquish and women, I don't know about the men because, obviously we didn't enter it, but with women, it was very demeaning to each other. And if you didn't wear all black, if you didn't wear niqab, if you weren't married, you were probably trying to marry your husband. It was just a lot of fitna in it.
Wow.
And I even remember like starting to become callous in that way also, in a sense where like I'll never forget one of my friends, and which me and her are still friends today. She said, what if you seen a Muslim sister fighting in the street? Would you jump in? I said, I sure would. I said, we'd beat that Kafir to death. Like, and in my mind, it was like, that's okay. Like because we're Muslim, we're supposed to be there for each other in that way. It was, and then I just stopped. Because then I wound up meeting someone who was Christian and was like, he was like, yes, because the reason why they're like that is because, why do you think ISIS and all those rubble, this because that's what Islam teaches. And he just went into all this stuff. And because I'm probably like in my mid-20s at this point, um, I didn't know enough because no one taught nothing. They have these classes that's very basic and very uninforming, that it doesn't it's not really educational wise, just
Mm.
period. It's just the very, very bare basics. And you need to come to the Jama'as and you need to hear what we got to say. It's very like 30 minutes. And whatever we say, that's what it is. But they don't teach us what that really means. Or, they really don't teach. It's just, I don't know how to else explain it, but you just don't really know your Islam correctly.
Wow.
And they shove books in your hand and tell you, read this, read that. But like, let's be honest, everybody can read the same book and get something different. That's why people need teachers. If that wasn't a thing, then everybody can just have books and just go off on their own. And even like in social media, when I look at the stuff that some people say, and I'm like, that is so incorrect. But if I sit there and correct everybody, I'll be sitting there for hours and hours and hours, which, times that I don't have. And even, how they degrade each other. Men don't do this. Women don't cut. Like, I can't say how many hijab posts I see. Like, oh my goodness, it's ridiculous. I understand that it's a commandment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but coming this way is not going to make nobody want to cover. Actually, it's going to make them want to run away from you.
Yeah. Was there a negative reaction from your non-Muslim friends and family during this period?
No, it wasn't. Because which is a whole nother issue. My family just didn't care one way or another. I could have probably jumped off a bridge. They was just showing us to my funeral and be like, oh, she was nice. And then that would be it. So they didn't really care too much about what I did with my life. Just period. Friends, being as I was on the younger side, it was more accepting to do stuff like that. So they're just like, oh, okay. It was, and a lot of my friends were already Muslim. So, it was an easy transition when it came to like going to school in high school. And even as an adult, my friends, when I came back, my friends didn't. It's just like, oh, okay, just another day, because I'm still me. I still have my personality. And I think some of the people in Philly, when you become Muslim, it's like they think your personality is supposed to go away. And you're supposed to be this righteous, pious Muslim that does no wrong. And when you do wrong, it's a backlash.
Which even the Sahaba, who's, the greatest nation who ever lived. Even for them, it took several years for them to, practice all of the, commandments from Allah. It's almost like we're expected to be better than the Sahaba. It's crazy. So I wanted to ask you, like, did you know any or many Muslim, African American Muslims who came out of the, I guess, the Nation of Islam experience, transitioning to Sunni Islam via Warith Muhammad and his movement? And did you get have you talked to them how that movement was different than like kind of the 90s, Salafi inspired movement? Ideology aside, like, with Akida wise, like, there's of course there's going to be differences, but just in how they like sort of how the African American community converted to Islam as a group in like the 60s, 70s, 80s. Like, did you get? Have you? Did you kind of hear their stories and how that kind of differed from the Islam, the Salafi style Islam in the 90s and 2000s?
I hear a little bit, not much. I never like really asked questions, but people talk about those times where it was like everybody, it was a real brotherhood. Everybody helped each other out. Everybody was there for each other. Even how like even when WIC came around and how they used to give women, they did stuff for the community. And I remember even one of the guys was like, people selling drugs on our block wasn't a thing because you weren't doing it. It was like
Mm,
even drug dealers, when they seen someone who like was smart and educated and stuff like that, they told them to go on the right path and encouraged them to stay in school and do all those different things. And most people didn't know, like some of them that were drug dealers, and it was more of they were saying like more of a safer community,
mhm,
in a sense.
mhm,
And I remember a little bit because I did grow up as a kid in the 90s. And I do remember like not feeling like I couldn't go outside because I was going to get shot. Like it was just like, oh, I'm going to get shot or something like that.
mm,
Or people just standing on the corner of the blocks, just like openly like selling drugs and stuff. I don't remember stuff like that.
mm. Wow.
So yeah, it really is a difference
Mhm,
now from back then,
mhm,
before the Salafi movement started.
mhm. Yeah. And like I just I just want to know more about like kind of why this happened, because I don't think it's an issue with Akida per se. I mean, like like knowing the attributes of Allah and the names of Allah and Asma wa Sifat. I mean, like
Mhm.
I don't think that's going to cause people to have this like rigid attacking nature. I mean, I think um I don't know. I mean, it seems as though if there was a way to combine the correct understanding of Islam, Allah's attributes, what we believe as Muslims, with this community approach that they had in like as you said in the 60s, 70s, 80s, early 90s, with the Nation of Islam coming to Sunni Islam. I mean, that would be wonderful. I mean, do you see a lot of Muslims in America, particularly African American Muslims, kind of like trying to bring that back, or kind of trying to combine the correct akida with this community approach?
Yes, there are some people, and they get a lot of flack. I know a lot of brothers that's trying and getting a lot of flack for it. But I think one of the reasons why this has happened in our communities is because Black people have a bad habit of thinking that another group of people is more knowledgeable than their own group of people. And when you go and you gain knowledge from another group of people, which in and of itself is not wrong, but what you also learn is their culture and the things that's going on in their culture, and you bring that back. That's not a
Mm,
problem in our culture.
yeah.
So a lot of them go to places like overseas in Saudi Arabia and stuff like that to gain knowledge. And this woman, she did a research paper. She's getting her doctorate in like some um Islam theologies and stuff like that. And she had noticed a correlation between what's happening in Philadelphia with Muslims and the same things that's happening overseas where people are getting educated from. And they're bringing back things that doesn't apply to us because we don't have those issues in our community. And
Mm.
I think that us as African Americans, we always want to get on everybody's bandwagon and help everybody, and it's detriment to our own self.
Very, I mean, fascinating stuff, and I'm glad that you're able to come on here, Michelle, and like and tell these stories, because we Islam for Europeans, we're basically all Muslims of European descent, and we definitely want to hear like the African American Muslim experience, and what like their side of the story, and what they recommend, not just for themselves as a community, but also for us. Like, because I remember talking to an African American brother who I know on Facebook, and he said that in the 90s, he had this hardcore Salafi style Islam, and even though it was the correct Akida, they were bringing in stuff like, for example, they wouldn't let women like drive cars like in Philadelphia. Like that's how like much they were bringing in the culture, which in Saudi Arabia, at the time, you can understand, because there's a lot of like there's a lot of bandits, in Saudi Arabia, like, who would actually, like, it would actually be unsafe for women to drive from, like, say, Jeddah to, like, uh, like a Mecca all by themselves. I know it's changed recently, but yeah, like things like that. It's just, it just doesn't really apply. And when you don't understand what a community has gone through, when you don't interact and live with that community, when you're not from that community, your recommendations and, like, the best way forward for that Muslim community is gonna it's just gonna be off, and you're not gonna understand where they're coming from. Are you saying, is that it? Do you think that it's them being racist per se, or it's just that they don't understand, like, life in the West and life for the African American Muslim community?
I think it's a combination of
Mm,
everything. Because what because I don't even think that people understand how. Because I think I've had a program where we talked about, like, do you really have free will? Not necessarily challenging the law, what he says about free will, but saying that, do you really exercise it? Because what people don't understand is our DNA is coded, right? It carry codes, and it's some of them tell us things that we should do because it's been coded in us genetically and passed down.
mm,
So people may be like, what the heck is she talking about? And because I think people don't understand it. So, like, for example, let's just say, like, because we came from, slavery and stuff like that, right? And we learn that, oh, we had that whole idea of, spare the rod, spoil the child, some crap like that. But in general, in our very nature, we're not coded to be violent.
mm,
Like, and that's what I mean. We're not coded that way. That's learned. And but the thing about it is, when you pass it down from generation to generation, and then you wonder on why sometimes you reacting in a certain way, it's because it's been changed. And now that you're developing these habits, and you don't even know why, like, it's like even like alcoholism and drug abuse. I may have never seen anybody in my family do it, but people in the past have, and then it's been coded for me to become more addicted than someone else who doesn't have a family history of that. Um, so Black people are communal. That's what our ancestors have done. Even, and I'm quite sure most Black people can relate to this, they're late for everything. They are late for everything. And people take it negatively, like, oh my God, Black people, they're always late. But one day I had met this guy. He was, well, not a guy, but he was my teacher. And he said, where he's from in the Caribbean, no party started until the last person is there.
mm,
That's how it always is. And they take pride into making themselves and beautifying themselves for events. And if you've been ripped from your culture and you're like, well, I don't know why I'm always late, then you start labeling yourself, I'm a procrastinator. No, that's just how that you might have come from a place where nothing started until the last person was there. Everybody was, because even like a sense of time, they was like, we don't look at the clock. We were like, somebody say, oh, we'll be there at 2, but it really doesn't literally mean 2. It's just a general idea of when I'm going to come. I might come at 3, I might come at 4, because they don't value being on time, not in a negative way, but it's because whatever it is that they are doing, they want to give their undivided attention to. And then they go to the next one and give their undivided attention to. They're more in the moment kind of people.
mm,
And but when you don't know who you are, you have no idea. You don't know why you're doing some of the things that you're doing,
mm, mm,
because you have to learn where you come from and who your people are. It doesn't make it bad.
mm, mm. Yeah, I completely agree. Like, my friend who's also a convert, he's of Italian Canadian descent. He noticed that, in Eastern cultures, you know, inviting a guest over is very, it's very specific, and it's very formal. and like you have to like give them tea and biscuits and food, and like it's a very important event. So everything is focused on when you meet people on the inside at their house or their house, there's a whole formality in being a guest.
Mhm.
And outside, in the East, it's more of like a free for all. It's much more informal. Like they don't form a line, to go on the bus or like order food at like a restaurant or like a food truck, right? So, but in the West, everything those two things are completely reversed. So when everything is formal on the outside, so lining up, to order food or get on the bus, right? Crossing the street. But when you're at somebody's house, you just put your feet up. Would you, like if you're hungry, yeah, you can ask them for anything. But if not, don't worry about it. It's basically mi casa y su casa. It's
Mhm.
much more informal, and you notice that like everything, the East and the West is like completely reversed in that way. So it's very easy for someone not from that culture to look at the other culture and go, well, they're like inferior, why do they do it that way, our way is much better. But like it's like, and that's just this feeling of superiority that is not what we want in Islam. Like there's different cultures all around the world, and to just say that we just have one homogenous Islamic culture,
Mhm.
um it's just unrealistic.
It is.
And like, do you one thing I wanted to ask you, Sister Michelle, is that because not only when like this kind of hardline Islam came in the 90s, you also had a lot of money coming in with a lot of new masjids that came from like a lot of money from overseas. So what happened to like the masjids that were built by the African American community, sometimes with their bare hands? I mean, like what happened? Like, was there economic disparities? Like, what kind of happened after that? That sort of, because you look at these masjids, some of them in America, they're just $1 million edifices with like huge marble wudu areas and all giant
Mhm.
chandeliers. What kind of happened? What were the effects and fallouts of that to the African American Muslim community?
Um, s My understanding, some of them closed. Some of them are in such bad condition that I'm surprised, and everybody gonna know what it is. LNI hasn't stepped in and like completely shut it down.
Wow.
Um, I remember going to one last year where the Voodoo area was like so, um because looks is the least of my concern, but I didn't even want to touch it.
Oh
It's
no.
like, it's like, I'm supposed to, pair myself. I'm myself with this, like it's a mess. Um, and we don't we have lost sight of what's important. And so people, and I think that some of it came out of desperation, because even as a culture, I remember when we used to grow up for a church, you better give your 10% to the church. Like oh, you they would look down on you, you better. And it seemed like when a lot of people had transitioned over, that went away. And I think some of it came from desperation, like people are not donating, they're not giving. Because again, how do you have like, um this one place had an Eid, when I tell you it was hundreds of Muslims that came out. Why do some of the masjids look like that? Even if you don't attend that masjid, if you hear about one that's going into the gutter, why wouldn't you donate and give money and help raise money for it? But also too, I've also learned since coming down this journey of becoming a professional, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala don't bless no mess either. you know so sometimes people have to take accountability for their own mess, and I think it's like a combination of some oppression, some accountability on our end as leaders and as followers that's in the deen, about taking care of ourselves, you know using the best weapon that we have, which is dua, which I feel like a lot of people do not do
Yeah.
at all. They show up for events, they look nice, and then they walk out, and you look in the Sedeka box, and it's like $5 in it.
No, it's unfortunate. Very unfortunate. I mean, like, cause yeah, I look at that and I just like, the African American community were the flag bearers of Islam in the United States. Um, and, I can never, like fully relate to that because, I'm a white kid from a town in southwestern Ontario, not even from the States. Like, I've seen Malcolm X, several times, but I mean, like, I can't really fathom the fact that, like, like that you guys were the flag bearers of Islam in the United States, and then it's almost like many Muslims coming to the United States, which alhamdulillah is a good thing, because they, it's not, they've done some, good things in advancing Islam in the U.S. We don't want to say that, what they're doing was all bad, but it's almost like that flag just got ripped away from you. And then, that's, I don't know, is that that kind of feeling that like, that the African American Muslim community really doesn't get uh, their voices heard as much anymore because we're trying to do this whole like homogenous Islam.
Um, no, I think our issue is we got caught. Like, I think a lot of our Islam is has been benched because of race. So we have been like with feminism, right? I'm not a feminist at all. I don't ascribe to it. Because feminist is not about Black women. It was never about Black women.
Mm-hmm.
But what it did was it teared families apart. And at the end of the day, I was just talking when I was on a counseling session with a sister, and and she said, I don't know why I depend on people to help me. And I said, do you know the story of the prophet Adam alayhi salam? She like, well, yeah. I said, what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him his wife for? For help and companionship. And we need those things. That's important. And when feminism came about, which don't get me wrong, I understand some of the concept of why it came about, but it wasn't Black people's issue. It was not, that was not our story. We didn't have that issue. Having, following the structure of the man is the man of the household, the woman is supportive, and all, we didn't have that issue. And when we got involved in that issue, then that's when it came out where, when the wars started happening, then they started giving out welfare and then giving out Section 8 and saying you can't have a man in the house if you, and it just tore everything apart. And one of the things that I've learned since becoming an adult is that men need to be feel needed. It's just the reality of it. That's just like, that's their role. Men don't feel like men when they cannot provide. And even men who always be like, no, I want it to be 50-50, blah, 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 because no, it's because you're scared. You're scared that you're going to fail. It has nothing to do with you really feel like you don't want to take care of your family. It's again encoded in us for men to want to care for his family and protect his family. And it's coded in women to emotionally want to care for everybody and teach everybody and things like that. But when you start having women do man things, and then you wonder why she's masculine and you wonder why men are becoming feminine, which, they said during the end times that men will become like women and women will become like men. That's what happens.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you start taking on female roles. You become more feminine, and vice versa.
Yeah, it's very tragic. And even me myself, like, I was, I was not I guess, say masculine man growing up in high school. Like, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I, didn't want to go to, higher education. I was terrified of having like, a girlfriend or a wife. This is before I converted to Islam. Yeah, like I just didn't know, I had no guidance. And I wish, I would have had Islam at that time, because Islam, like, Allah gives these roles to men and women, and like,
Mm,
here, like, men are the providers and protectors of women. Like, it gives you that, like, meaning to your life, that, this is, you know my role, as a man, that I have to, be able to provide, and just, and be the best that you can be at a job or a career, learn a
mm,
skill, and just, and perfect it,
mm,
like, and like, and just, without that guidance, you're just going to be completely aimless, like, alhamdulillah that my parents let me stay at home, because I just would have been, like, completely lost, without Islam in my life. I mean, I was working part time at a pizza place,
mm,
and like, I had no skills, and like, no, career or future. Um, but I think, that's, what Islam can do to reform, society. As you can tell, probably tell Michelle, my Zoom is running out. So what I normally like to do is, I like to, do like little 30-minute segments, and then come right back on and start like a new, Zoom meeting. So it'll be the same code as, I gave you, like, when we first started.
mm.
But what we'll do is we'll just get out of this meeting, and then, we'll, come back. I'll open up a new meeting, and then I'll just invite you back on, and we can start the second, section of the show. But
Child, to know how to use my Zoom.
what's that?
How to use my Zoom because I've got a paid subscription.
Oh yeah, I do want to get a paid subscription, inshallah, but right now I don't have it. I know it's very we have a very bare bones, not a lot of funding for this channel right now. But yeah, so, do you want to just do that, and we'll just
Yeah.
pause it? Okay, and come back. Okay. Again, my name is Rob from Islam for Europeans. We have a guest, Michelle Renee Davis, from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, our honor guest. Please subscribe to our channel. And what's your channel again, Michelle? If they want to subscribe to yours.
Yes, it's everyone underscore favorite underscore therapist on YouTube.
Okay, alhamdulillah, that's good. Okay, we'll be right back. Okay.
All righty.